Esther chapter 9. Now in the 12th month, that is, the month of Adar, on the 13th day on the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution, in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them, the Jews gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, to lay hand on such as sought their hurt. And no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon the people. And all the rulers of the provinces, and the lieutenants, and the deputies, and officers of the king helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. Thus the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and slaughter and destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated them. And in Shushan the palace the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men. In Parshandatha, and Dalphon, and Aspatha, and Poratha, and Adaliah, and Aradatha, and Parmashta, and Arasai, and Aradai, and Vajazatha, the 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hamadatha, the enemy of the Jews. Slew they, but on the spoil laid they not their hand. On that day the number of those that were slain in Shushan the palace was brought before the king. And the king said unto Esther the queen, the Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the palace, and the 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now what is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request further? And it shall be done. Then said Esther, if it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews which are in Shushan to do tomorrow also according unto this day's decree. And let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. And the king commanded it so to be done. And the decree was given at Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. For the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day also of the month of Adar, and slew 300 men at Shushan, but on the prey they laid not their hand. But the other Jews that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together, and stood for their lives, and had rest from their enemies, and slew of their foes 75,000 but they laid not their hands on the prey. On the 13th day of the month of Adar, and on the 14th day of the same rested they, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. But the Jews that were at Shushan assembled together on the 13th day thereof, and on the 14th thereof, and on the 15th day of the same they rested, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Therefore the Jews of the villages that dwelt in the unwalled towns made the 14th day of the month of Adar a day of gladness and feasting, and a good day, and of sending portions one to another. And Mordecai wrote these things, and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, both nigh and far, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month Adar, and the 15th day of the same yearly, as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning into a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. And the Jews undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them, because Haman the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast Pur, that is, the lot, to consume them, and to destroy them. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked device, which he devised against the Jews, should return upon his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. Wherefore they called these days Purim, after the name of Pur. Therefore, for all the words of this letter, and of that which they had seen concerning this matter, and which had come unto them, the Jews ordained and took upon them and upon their seed, and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to their writing, and according to their appointed time every year, and that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, and every city, and that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed. Then Esther the queen, the daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Jew, wrote with all authority to confirm this second letter of Purim. And he sent the letters unto all the Jews to the 127 provinces of the king of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, with words of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim in their times appointed, according as Mordecai the Jew and Esther the queen had enjoined them, and as they had decreed for themselves and for their seed the matters of the fastings and their cry. And the decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in the book. Esther chapter 10. And the king Ahasuerus laid a tribute upon the land and upon the isles of the sea, and to all the acts of his power and of his might, and the declaration of greatness of Mordecai, whereunto the king advanced him. Are they not written in the book of the chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia? For Mordecai the Jew was next unto King Ahasuerus, and great among the Jews, and accepted of the multitude of his brethren, seeking the wealth of his people, and speaking peace to all his seed. The Book of Esther, summary and commentary. As we have seen, the Book of Esther is one of the best books in the Bible because it describes great events that combine historical events with the miracles of God on the Jewish people. And what a great thing happened here with Esther. But the one thing to note about Esther is that she was a queen, and the book of Esther does not hide it. It enhances that she was a queen. And as I read the chapters, I'm thinking that she is queen to King Ahasuerus. He's over all the provinces and over all the lands. But Queen Esther is the queen of the Jews. She protected the Jews. But at the same time, she didn't do it as like a replacement of a man, like we started to talk in chapters 1 and 2. It was through Mordecai that she submitted herself when it came to the matters of the Jewish people. And of course, she had a head, which was her husband, King Ahasuerus. So at no point in time was Esther an independent woman doing what she wanted. She carried herself with humility with the king, bowing herself to the ground when she came in to see the king. So Esther is pretty much a example of what a woman should be and the honor that a woman should have, but it's never without the headship of a man. So Queen Esther is a great reminder that in times of great darkness and persecution and hatred toward the people of God, people who obey the laws and statutes of the Lord, that even in those times of darkness, The Lord worked out this miracle for them. And there are a couple things just on the side of history. If you look at verse 31, chapter 9, to confirm these days of Purim in their times appointed, according as Mordecai the Jew and Esther the queen had enjoined them. And look at verse 32. And the decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, meaning Esther did it on the side of King Ahasuerus, meaning the historical record for the kings of Persia. It was recorded also in their book, and it was written in their book. So a lot of people probably have hid it because they want to disprove the Bible, but it'd be interesting to see that was written in their books, in their chronicles. They also had a book of chronicles, it seems like, from what I read here in Esther. I'm not talking about I read somewhere else. You can kind of deduce that that's what's happening. So it's sad because the book of Esther ends the historical books and the exile. We've already read the prophets, a lot of them. We're gonna read some of them also, but we're gonna go into the book of Job, which is the first of the poetical books of the Bible. And so I'm kind of sad because the majority of that history we've already read, and so we're gonna miss those books. But we look forward towards Jesus coming in the Gospels. So tomorrow we'll start Job. Have a good one.